I remember the sound of silverware before I remember the insult. Forks clinking, a glass settling, my mother's smile already decided. She handed out gifts like verdicts, boxes for everyone, paper tearing, gratitude rehearsed. When it reached me, her hands were empty. She said, "Be grateful you can sit here." My uncle chuckled. "Be glad we still remember your name." Laughter spread like a stain. I tasted iron. I nodded once and said, "Good to know." I meant it. That night I counted breaths instead of words. I didn't leave early, I didn't argue. I watched who laughed the loudest. I watched who avoided my eyes. I watched my mother enjoy the power of it. That was the moment the plan began, even if I didn't name it yet. I used to believe families broke quietly. I was wrong. They break with witnesses. Years earlier, when I came back after the divorce, they called it a reset, a fresh start. I sold the house. I closed the chapter. I moved into the spare room and paid rent anyway because dignity matters. I rebuilt my business from a laptop at the kitchen table. Nights blurred into mornings. I kept receipts. I kept my head down. I kept trusting that effort would be noticed. It was, just not by me. They loved the version of me that fixed things. Tax filings, website issues, a loan bridge, my uncle's temporary cash flow problem, my mother's just this once use of my credit. They praised me in private and minimized me in public. I learned the difference too late. The first sign was a notification I wasn't meant to see, a calendar invite forwarded by mistake. Estate planning, final review. My name wasn't on it. I didn't confront, I archived. Then a bank alert, a balance lower than it should be, a withdrawal authorized with my mother's signature. I asked casually. She smiled easily. "We'll square it." I didn't argue. I screenshotted. Patterns reveal themselves when you stop pleading for exceptions. Emails forwarded, documents renamed, a beneficiary list revised without discussion, a business I built listed as family asset in a draft agreement. That night, I slept well. Control came back the moment emotion left. I hired a lawyer who spoke softly and listened hard. We didn't threaten, we prepared. I pulled contracts, I traced funds, I separated accounts they assumed were shared. I froze access they thought was permanent. I did it quietly, legally, and with timestamps. I changed nothing at the table. I smiled. I fixed the Wi-Fi. I paid rent. I let them believe Christmas had passed without consequence. Then I filed. 2 weeks later, the door shook like it was being kicked by weather. My mother's voice cracked first. My uncle shouted second. Words collided. Fraud, ungrateful, family. I didn't open the door. I stood behind it and listened, counting again. They had just discovered the liens, the repayment demands, the notices to cease using my intellectual property, the corrected ownership filings, the repayment schedule tied to withdrawals I could prove, the trusts amended back to what the law required, the business assets separated cleanly and irrevocably. They didn't scream because they were innocent. They screamed because the mirror had arrived. I opened the door eventually. Not wide. Enough. My mother tried to touch my arm. I stepped back. My uncle tried humor. It died in his mouth. "I just want to understand," she said. I nodded. Good to know. I watched it land, slowly, painfully. The phrase echoed back to Christmas, the laugh track gone, the room smaller. She cried then, not for me, for the loss of leverage. The confrontation wasn't loud, it was surgical. I explained nothing I didn't have to. I let the documents speak. Dates, signatures, amounts. I told them where communication would go from now on, through counsel. I told them the repayment plan was generous. I told them generosity had an expiration date. They begged me to reconsider. They called me cold. They called me their child. I thought of the empty hands at the table. "No," I said, "just once." After that, the fallout did its work. Credit tightened. Stories changed. The family group chat went silent. Invitations stopped arriving. So did requests. The business stabilized. The accounts balanced. My sleep deepened. I didn't win by humiliating them. I won by leaving nothing for them to take. Months later, I hosted my own dinner. Small, intentional. People who knew my name without being reminded. I wrapped gifts carefully. I wrote notes by hand. I sat at the head of the table because the seat was earned, not assigned. Sometimes I replay that laugh in my head. It doesn't hurt anymore. It calibrates me. This confession isn't about revenge. It's about alignment, about the moment you stop asking to belong and start deciding who gets access. They taught me a lesson at Christmas. I returned it with interest. Justice doesn't shout. It knocks, waits, and collects. And when they say, family is everything, I smile. Good to know.